So today we are looking at the best team of the seasons and kind of going through a little updated list of what there is to offer. Team of the season is in full swing with Serie A, and honestly it's just another week where it gets a slight little bit better and we are just on the way to La Liga. Now I do think it is relatively boring, to be honest. I must admit, it's team of the season normally is pretty decent around Prem, and then it kind of just takes a little bit, and you're ready for the new. We get new news on FC26, and you're kind of just waiting for it to end, really. And I'm interested to see what they do after team of the season. But we have got a lot of players that are now coming into a lot of people's teams, really. There's a lot of evolutions on Re 95. You want to check the channel out for that one. But naturally, there is only one game to qualify for champs now, which makes life a lot interesting. And I think when we do look at a lot of these team of the seasons, most of them are going to come in the same sort of position of what they did last week, bar from a few. I feel like there's definitely a few that you could argue a bit of a miss now, to be honest. There is some that are just becoming unreliable, unneeded, just because we have got so many options to go with in this. Now, obviously, there's still the best of the best, and I think you could definitely narrow them down quite easily. We look at Isaac, we look at Salah. A lot of the top end in terms of your 97 rateds are most definitely up there. I don't think there's many questions about them, to be honest. I do think the likes of Osimhen now could be dropped down in comparison to the likes of a Kane. And we'll kind of look through the prices as well. But naturally, when you do look at the likes of a Salah, a Virgil, a Tar, and also a Kane, they are some of the best players that you can get for a reason. So obviously when we do look through, obviously Serie A, you look at the 97 striker here, outrageously good. You look at Martinez, who does need to be added to this tier list because again, outrageously good for the price that you're paying. 95 rated with 400k on the price tag. Low driven, quick step, finesse, solid striker. We go down to obviously the Super League. You'll see Osimhen still coming in at a good price. The argument's now that you potentially see more and more strikers just having that same sort of level. You've got obviously Kane coming in at 2 million. You go a bit further down, you look at obviously the Prem. You still see the likes of Salah coming in at 2.2, Virgil coming in at 4.5. And then you go one step further and look at Liga and still see that Dembele is still sitting there at 6.1, which is just crazy. There is a reason why them players are the most expensive. They are the best players in the game. Otherwise, they wouldn't be that sort of price. We do see a few more, obviously, like Dembele will go up into this top level. When we are looking at kind of your bog standard, your misses now, really, you'd be looking at your Lucy Bronze. Realistically, when we've got the likes of Dumfries in here, we've got the likes of obviously a Frimpong as a solid option. I don't think he's number one, but I do think he's solid. When we do look at the likes of a Dumfries, he adds that different level of class for me. So it's always an interesting one to go with. We look at the Leeds CDM. Solid player. Now, you could argue that he potentially puts himself into that top category, but I think when we do get the likes of the Hullets around with the evolution on top, he's going to be just under him in my opinion. I don't think many people can replicate what Hullet can. Now, naturally, if we go into kind of some of the misser players, really, there's not going to be many, I'd say, in this list because we are obviously choosing a lot of the kind of topper end talent, really. So you'd kind of be looking through, and I think if you was looking for some of the probably say there isn't many as we go further up that list. You kind of say maybe Hoof could be a little bit dropped down. You maybe say Batra at this point could be dropped from the left back role. She still could have a bit of usability, same as a bit of Bronze. So there is the chance that maybe you're being a little bit harsh and drop it into more of a usable category. So it is dependent on what you think, because naturally with a lot of the team of the seasons, other than your 90s and 91s, they aren't going to be used. The 94s and 5s and above, they are got a bit more of a better chance. So if you're looking for coins, check in the description for El Dorado. Depending on the coin amount that you're looking for, the delivery time is displayed on the website, and you'll see lots of different trusted sellers with reviews on specifics and also the ability to be able to pick who you want. It will also show how much they have in stock, and obviously you can see that they are verified members. There is 100% refund ability and also 24/7 support if you need any questions with your coin needs. Also, if you head over to Trustpilot as well, you can see over 30,000 upvotes for them. You can see how reliable they are. Obviously great feedback across the entire board with Eldorado. So when on checkout, make sure you are using the code JT11 for 5% off your order every time. Discount code JT11. Now let's get back to the video. So now to make the list a little bit easier, we'll drop it out. Let's see what we can go with. Now, it's quite an easy one for a lot of these. Like Bruno would go into the very usable. He would consist of, for me, somebody that is cheap but very effective with what they do. You'll see a lot of these kind of players really coming in to their own, where you'd argue that they are at least semi-decent in their position. And now we are getting a few that can go into evolutions as well. Now, not everybody's going to have an outrageous evolution coming in, but there is quite a few that are now starting to see this. You've got the Team of the Season upgrade for the Bundesliga Cup, then obviously the Team of the Season Serie A upgrade, plus then the glitch to make him into a 95. Some good options coming in to just update one upgrade, one little bit, and it really does make a little bit of a difference in my opinion. Whether you personally think so or not, it's always the big question. And I think when we look at the kind of top end team now, there's not necessarily a set answer. It will all depend on this top list. Like you look at the likes of an Elise, you look at the likes of a Bastoni. If you've got one of them in the team, then you could argue where do you go from there, because that's where you build a team around them. You look at a Shaqiri, solid card in terms of what he kind of has for that Europa Select Team of the Season. It's a brilliant card. Now, is he going to really make any difference in anybody's team? It depends. If you got enough icons to put the Swiss in there, possibly. But in general, it's going to be very difficult to get him in there without making a team around him. Now, obviously, you've got to have him first before you do it. So you could argue between there. We then look a bit further down into some of these other Serie A's. I do think Martinez will come into a very top-end category, but whether I think he's better than your kind of Isaacs, I mean, you know what? I will push him up that one more. Dumfries obviously goes in there. If you've ever used him as a right-back this year, he is brilliant in that position, just fantastic level talent. Obviously then you look at the likes of Keane coming in at 230. He's going to be kind of more in your very usable, whereas then we do look at the likes of a Lukaku. He would be more in just your usable if anything. Now Milinkovic-Savic is the goalkeeper. Honestly, at 6'8", I'm gonna throw him. I'm gonna throw him a bone, to be honest. I think De Gea, as much as I'd love him to be in that top end, he's gonna be in that usable category. But 6'8" as a goalie, you've got to get him done. Just genuinely, just to try him out. Last year, well, no, FIFA 19 or 20 in the centre mid variation, he was outrageous as a centre mid. But now he's gone back into being a goalie like he always was. But coming in as a 94 could be an interesting one to see how he works out, to be honest. We then also have the likes of Upamecano. I still think most of them will still kind of put themselves in that solid-esque category. Gravenberch will be the same. Gabriel obviously puts him in there. We should have a Saliba somewhere as well. Him and Pacho will still put themselves in the absolute top. I don't think there's any questions there. And I'd even say Mateo puts herself up there as well, to be fair. She was brilliant in front of goal. So there is quite a lot that I'm arguing that you would like to see in your team, but then there's quite a few that I think would do a number. Like, I think the difference between the likes of a Hugo or a Guriassi, I think Guriassi doesn't make it to the list, whereas Hugo's got a solid basis already. So it's always interesting to see the difference between them two as we go through. The likes of Fred is always nice. We've got a few others that would drop down a little bit more. I've just not been that much of a fan of Grimaldo. There's going to be a fan club around him, but in general, I just think he's a good card. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit harsh for him. I don't really do attacking wingbacks too much, but I think you could argue between the toss of them. Obviously, Firpo's there. Like, Firpo was a brilliant left back, same as Kerkeres, and also Skelly. I think there's always been a solid basis of left backs, but nobody concrete other than like where your Furlan Mendy's upgrade goes, your Teo Hernandez when he is. Obviously, if you're looking at one, I would say Alphonso Davies has to put himself in above the category. But again, Teo Hernandez, even without a team of the season, is still probably coming in as top. Then naturally you look at like your Nuno Mendez's. I'd probably put him in very usable if anything. Musiala, I wouldn't go any more than top. You look at your Palmer, I think he's got to be like Bruno. He's a different element, sort of a cam, like we've said last week. He's kind of your cam that is more shooting orientated, kind of your dribbling, whereas Bruno is out and out passing. That is kind of his game. McAllister's always an interesting one because I thought his grassroots was generational. Like, it was such a different... It was an upgrade that actually he could have been well worthy of. Now, I just think he's just put into the atmosphere of everybody. So he's kind of, unfortunately, been dragged into the mud of everybody at this. Obviously, then if we go for a few more... Cunha, another one. When you look at Prem, it kind of it's quick how everybody just disappears. Like, even Cunha, to be fair, I'm like 160. He's a solid striker. I mean, he kind of comes in with the Openda, and he's a nice striker, but he's just not going to be that game changing. Openda obviously will stick to a similar price because naturally it was an SBC. So maybe you argue that Cunha could be dropped down into the usable now. I still think you could possibly get a solid amount of use out of him. Obviously go with Saliba up there. Xavi, Simons, I'd stick into the very usable. Stanway, I'm gonna still stick with her, to be fair. I think she definitely comes in the category. Cherokee can be dropped down now, to be honest. I don't think he has that same pull from week one. Vitinha would be another one very similar, kind of like your João Neves is, where at the very start, kind of you give 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, you'd still put them at the absolute top of the tippity top. Whereas now I'm like, well, we've got 15 other players that have got that, from the NWSL to the Europa Select to Liga Portugal that's coming out, and then the Bundesliga, the Serie A, there's so many options you can go with. Even Doué is kind of just there. Same as Ferran Torres. And then you've got quite a few of the female teams where you've got the solid players, but they're just not quite breach the gap in between the very usable and the absolute number one. Davinson Sanchez is going to be another one that could have potentially been up in the top, but links and just in general ability would be questioned over like the likes of a Virgil or Saliba or Tar. So it's always a big question. We have Chawinga. We have two different versions as well. We have the NWSL and Liga, and both of them look outrageously good. So that is something to be proud of. Haaland obviously is up there. He again could have been. I'd be interested. What is his price? Because he could have been a monstrous striker, and yet we got 237,000. He's just been one of them strikers that is just there, to be honest. And the same for the likes of Rice. I mean, Rice is a solid CDM. The quadruple playstyle plus adds. I mean, you could possibly add him into that kind of top end market just because of where he stands in this kind of quadruple playstyle plus. But realistically now, we've got a lot of options for CDMs. With the glitch of the evolution, we could put Hullet into a 95, give him a quadruple playstyle plus. You got to really put it into perspective of where these players truly lie. Are they the best in their position? And realistically now, a lot of them know. Tadic will be dropped down. We zoom back out. Okay, we zoom back in one. We obviously see the likes of Wirtz. I think he puts himself up into the top. I think him and Musiala are interesting because they are very similar, but also different in the same option. Like, it's an interesting dynamic to see between the quadruple and the triple. Obviously, incisive tiki-taka, low driven versus pinged tiki-taka, technical first touch. So no shooting. I think the shooting really could have added that level, and I think it's where Wirtz for me would just be that one level above. Barcola would be in the very usable. I think then you look at the likes of Harder, you look at João Neves. I think they are players that would have been in that top category, now dropping down. I think Shaw would drop herself down a little bit. Horan would definitely be in the very usable. Marta would be, she'd probably be the other miss, to be honest. I think she's good, but she really didn't get that levels above. Same as Dybala. Dybala was another shoe-in, I thought, that could have been a card that at least should have been in the question mark of could he be one of the best? And I'm hoping Griezmann's going to be in there as well, but whether he is going to be the big question. I don't know what he's actually done this season, and I know Barcelona have won it. So Dybala just looks average. Like, he looks good, but average at best. So it's always going to be the question mark on him, like, where does he fit in anywhere? Same when you do look at the likes of Pulisic, like, in terms of the card, he looks decent. Right mid, 94, solid option, but he's just kind of there. We've got so many of them options that he just blends in a little bit too much. Shaqiri obviously puts him in the very usable. I'd say Pulisic would be dropped down. And we do have the Turan brothers, both insanely cheap. Now, I think there's still a lot of play with them. I do think both of them really come in. Like, you look at both, you got the quick step tiki-taka low driven. Granted, you just add a finesse to him, sorted. You look at then Thuram, intercept, bruiser, pinged pass, add an anticipate, add a tiki-taka and incisive. Again, sort him out easily. So there is always options in there that you could throw in. We then have Smith. She obviously puts herself in there at the top. We then do have the likes of Reyners. I think that it's very easy for a lot of them. Lookman would drop down. DeMarco, as a left back, I'd put him with amongst the good left backs, but really he's going to be just average. Unfortunately, Di Lorenzo's going to be outpaced by Dumfries. Barella could be the other option as a top meta centre mid, but I think you could argue between the TOTS, same as the likes of McTominay. He's going to be up there with the likes of a Rice, but just not beating Hullet, in my opinion, still. And Orsolini would do the same as well. So that is going to be the list for today. We're going into La Liga. Hopefully it brings a lot of top-end talent, which I'm assuming it will. Let me know how you're getting on, and hopefully we get a decent start to the next FC 26. Peace.